the session, Mr. Rohit Sathe, an IIT Mumbai BTech graduate and MBA from INSEAD Singapore, is presently President Philips Healthcare Indian Subcontinent. He is a part of Philips India leadership team and oversees key initiatives to improve access to healthcare in the areas of prevention, diagnosis, and treatment. In his current position, he is accountable for bringing in extensive industry knowledge and global experience to contribute to Philips' overall growth plans.
He holds more than 2 decades of work experience on sales, marketing, project management, and general management in healthcare, construction, and e-learning industries in India and the UK. Sir believes in questioning the status quo and striving to continuously improve. He drives transformational innovation that helps improve the lives of people. I would request Mr. Rohit Sathe to kindly carry the segment further.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. The lunch is sort of still sitting a little bit heavy in our stomachs, I think. So what we're going to do today is we have, along with myself, 2 of my esteemed colleagues as well, from GE and from Reliance. The format is going to be where we speak 10 minutes each on what the topic means for us. And then we will sort of spare all of you, because I know tomorrow's your convocation, which means you've had innumerous lectures, numerous people talking to you, right? Just like you had before lunch as well. But we will give you an opportunity to question, to ask us a few questions, maybe put us on the spot as well, okay? Let's see if you can fox us. Is that okay? Is that okay? Good. We need this to be a little bit of an interactive session when the question and answers start, for sure, okay? So here goes. So this is, I'm just introducing Philips a little. The moderators over here just introduced me as somebody who heads Philips Healthcare in India. We believe there is always a way to make life better, and our goal is much in line with the topic that we have, right? Equitable distribution. How do we distribute medical services, medical equipment, medical devices to as many people as possible? Our goal is to touch 3 billion people a year by 2025, right? So that's, as per today's population, that's like 40-45% of the world's population. Of course, in 2025 might be a little bit less, but that's nonetheless quite a big number. So equitable distribution of medical equipment, devices, and pharma products. Now, you see, I've just cut that out a little bit and redefined the topic for you guys. You did, for those of you who were here in the morning and saw Prabal present, he spoke about the 4 A's, which were sort of the 4 bottlenecks that every healthcare industry faces. And I'm talking about these 2 over here specifically when we're talking about equitable distribution, which is affordability and accessibility. So what is affordability and accessibility, all right? So another framework for you guys. So apologize that that's another framework, but clearly this is not on your exam, right? So it should be okay. There are 4 things that we talk about: accessibility, value solutions, speed and accuracy, and innovation. I believe that these are the pillars that are going to define how you can achieve the equitable distribution of medical equipment, devices, and pharmaceuticals. So what is accessibility? Medical equipment in this country is quite expensive, obviously, right? I mean, you're talking about imaging equipment that goes into crores of rupees. That's not exactly cheap, right? Now, this is the price anywhere else in the world. Without purchasing power parity, purchasing parity, that is something that is difficult for us, obviously, to achieve, for the hospitals over here to achieve. So how do you reduce that total cost of ownership, and how do you give a good experience to our healthcare delivery outfits out there, which is nothing but hospitals? Value solutions. That also has got to do with buildings. I'm talking about how, the cost of constructing a bed can range anywhere from, 25 or 30 lakhs, or even less if it's a nursing home, which is maybe a 5 to 50 bedded outfit, to a tertiary care hospital that deals with specialties and can cost anywhere, upwards of 1 crore as well per bed to construct. That's a huge range. Now, how do you bring in value solutions in the era of Ayushman Bharat, right? Now, you guys would have already studied about this or heard about that in the media, that these are, this is the program that the government has, where 40% of the population is going to get covered, but the reimbursement for different procedures is so low that the construction of hospitals has to really, really happen in a very, very cheap way. So that's value solutions. Speed and accuracy. You have to get it first time right. If you're going to do a scan of a patient and that patient has to come back again in line and have that scan again, then that's wastage. That's wastage for the patient, that's wastage for the diagnostic center or the hospital, that's wastage for the referring doctor, that's wastage for the country that might be paying for this under Ayushman Bharat as well, right? So speed and accuracy is important. You got to get things first time right. Last but not least, innovation. We're known as a country of jugaad, right? But it's not necessarily jugaad always that you got to think about, right? It is innovation. Innovation is nothing but trying to provide what the customer needs, okay? Precisely what the customer needs, not what you already have ready-made in your bag, maybe, okay? What the customer needs, what meets the customers, not just for what the customer has to do, but fits into the environment, right? So it should be at the right price point, they should have a right go-to-market model, and all those types of things as well, okay? So these are things that define the affordability and the accessibility of distribution, okay? We're going to move pretty fast. I've already done with half my time, huh? So just some call-outs over there to tell you how grave the mismatch is in our market. So India has just about 0.6 MRI devices for every 10 lakh or a million population. Contrast that with Japan and the US. You're talking about numbers which are 52 for 51.7 in Japan, 40 for for US. That's a huge, huge gap. How do you then bridge that gap? Our country has found a novel solution, and that is PPP, public-private partnerships. Public-private partnerships are a way where the government has a load of patients, okay? Companies like ours, GE and Siemens, they come together, say, hey, we can provide the equipment. And then there are radiologists or doctors who say, hey, we will provide the clinical judgment. How do you come together and you solve the problem of the nation without anybody really owning it altogether, right? So that's PPPs. Now, the second headline out there for you. That is something that should not be too much of a surprise. That's been talked about in the newspapers quite a lot as well. India has a doctor-patient ratio of 1:30,000, okay? How much are we worse off? By a factor of 30, because the WHO recommends 1:1,000. And one hospital bed for every 1,050 patients, as against 14 plus, again, in the developed part of this world, in Japan and in US, okay? Now, this is where innovative solutions or value solutions, make a huge difference. How are you going to construct that kind of a hospital that is going to meet the purposes of that particular locality, that particular district, that particular state, okay, and for our country? How do you go out there and do this? And this is nothing but a snapshot. I know it's a very crowded slide, and I don't want to get into the details of that. That'll sound like a very good marketing and a management presentation. But what this is only about telling you that there are companies who are talking about this. We are one such company that talks about, hey, what does the doctor, what does the person, the businessman, what does the government, what do they need exactly, okay? You need to be able to construct that range. You can build a bed with a 25 lakh rupees or take it up to more than 1 crore rupees, depending on what your patients want, depending on what this person who's building the hospital wants, right? Another one provocative statement out there. 1 out of 5 MRIs require a rescan due to patient motion, artifacts, all those things. That costs like 12,000 rupees almost per hour, okay? Is that something that you guys are familiar with? I'm not so sure, right? But this is what I was talking about when I said you have to get things first time right, okay? There is a whole lot that you would have heard, and I'm sure you would have heard, about artificial intelligence. Anybody out there who's not heard of artificial intelligence, right? Machine learning. Now, these are ways in which you're saying, let's learn from the vast amount of data that we had, right? You had Dr. Vidya here in the morning as well, talking about how data is a gold mine. Today, all our equipment is digital enabled. That means it can collect data about the scans, about the outcomes, about the time it takes, the waiting time, all those kinds of things, okay? And it is possible. It is absolutely possible to build software that ensures that we can get things first time right. Those are just two of the equipment that we sell as a company, right? MRIs and ultrasounds. But there is software. There is software that can reduce scans by almost 50%. An MRI, I don't know again if you guys are aware, but an MRI takes almost about 40 to 45 minutes to scan any different body part, right? It could take as less as 15, but it could take as much as an hour as well. There is software out there that is able to intelligently figure out which part of the anatomy is being scanned and then do a very optimized job so that it can take up to 40% less. Okay, that is possible on an MRI. Now, in a country like India, when you're practicing PPPs, okay, you have a huge throughput of patients to manage if it's going to make commercial sense for you to have that machine. Now, in that kind of a scenario, this definitely makes sense, right? Reducing 40% of the scan time. Another one, and that's the last provocative one that I have. 4.7% of our GDP is spent on healthcare. Is that a surprise? No, I think we've heard that before. Our government spends really minuscule on healthcare. I think that is increasing now by leaps and bounds, this government, and I don't know what's going to happen now after the elections, but governments and healthcare has always been a topic now for consideration for the last 10 years or so. And I think that's good news. That's good news for the population of this country. Because the more the government gets involved in this, and I know you again had Prabal here in the morning, he spoke about price control because his business, which is in stents, obviously suffered because of that. Hospitals could not make enough margin to acquire new equipment that would help treat patients. So that number's got to rise. Look at that number for the US or for China, 17.1, 5.5. But we have a lot of private healthcare, and that probably doesn't get counted out there. Okay? So there's lots to be done over here. There's miles to go before we sleep. There's miles to go before we sleep. Okay? So lots to be done out there. Innovation is what's going to help us. Innovation is what's going to help us to take us there. Okay? These are just some of these things which are developed locally within the country. Every big imaging company, whether it's Philips or GE or Siemens, they have their R&D centers over here. All right? And we are doing things which are specific for the population of this country. We look at things like, so if you look at one of those, the wind-up fetal Doppler, right? It doesn't need electricity or battery. Doesn't need those things. You can wind it up, you can crank it up. Okay? That is what is innovation. That is something that you need over here, right? You look at that other thing on top called Charm. It is something that measures a baby's respiration, okay? And that's something you can walk around. You can take the baby around as well, okay? Needed in India. This is something that is made for India. And that is something which if all the companies get together and partner, okay, this is possible. Now guess what? The institution in which you're studying, and you heard that in the morning again from Dr. Vidya, that this is one place where they stress that engineering and medical have to come together, okay? That is where these kind of things become possible. And for tomorrow, we have faith then that we are going to be a much better place, okay? That's my last slide. Thank you very much.